Going from fat to lean means eating way less food. So now you're starving all the time, and your brain is playing tricks on you to get you to eat and ruin your diet. Why can't you stay in a calorie deficit even with a solid plan? In this video, I'm breaking down the real reasons you can't control your hunger, and it's not what you think. Not willpower and not more cardio. But to help you get to your goal physique even faster, I put together a list of the exact meals I handcrafted for my last cut that resulted in me losing 30 pounds of fat in 5 months, all while staying full the entire time. You can grab it for free with the link in the description below. I'll never forget the night I completely destroyed 3 weeks of perfect dieting. It was about 9 p.m. and I had already hit my calorie goal for the day. Everything was going great. I was sitting on the couch watching It's Always Sunny, feeling great about my progress, when I remembered there was a half bag of marshmallows in the pantry left over from my bulk. At first, I told myself I wouldn't touch them. I'm disciplined. I've got this. But then an ad came on because I couldn't be bothered to pay for Hulu Premium, and I thought about them again. Just a handful, I told myself. 1 serving. I got up, had that handful, and sat back down. 10 minutes later, I was back in the kitchen, then again, and again. By the time I finally forced myself to go to bed, the entire bag was gone, and I felt absolutely terrible. Not just physically, but mentally. I had just undone days of work in a single evening. That's when I realized something crucial that nobody wants to hear, but everyone needs to understand. Willpower is a finite resource. It's like a muscle that gets tired throughout the day. You might be strong in the morning, disciplined through lunch, but by 9 p.m., when you've had a stressful day and you're sitting on the couch, that tasty bag of treats in the pantry is calling your name, and eventually, you're gonna answer. But what if I told you the solution isn't to develop superhuman willpower? The solution is actually to eliminate the need for willpower altogether. If the chips aren't there, you can't eat them. If the ice cream isn't in your freezer, you can't have a bowl at midnight. This is about engineering your environment for success instead of constantly fighting yourself every day. Think about it. Every time you resist a craving, you're using mental energy. Every time you walk past that pantry and tell yourself no, you're depleting your willpower reserves. But if there's nothing to resist, you save that energy for things that actually matter. A good environment doesn't just make dieting easier, it makes it almost automatic. When your only options are foods that align with your goals, the decision is already made for you. You're not constantly negotiating with yourself about whether you should have just one. You've removed that negotiation entirely. This is the foundation everything else is built on. If you only implement one thing from this video, make it this one. So once you've cleaned out your environment, how do you actually structure what you're eating to stay full? I used to think eating in a calorie deficit meant being hungry all the time. I'd eat my 6 ounces of chicken breast with a cup of rice, hit my macros perfectly, and then sit there an hour later absolutely starving, staring at the clock, waiting for my next meal. I'd drink water, chew gum, try to distract myself. Nothing worked. I remember one day eating my lunch, looking down at my empty plate and thinking, that's it? That's all I get? I felt like I was being punished for trying to lose fat. Then I stumbled onto something that completely changed my approach. I was at a restaurant with a friend who ordered this massive salad. I'm talking about a mixing bowl sized plate piled high with lettuce, vegetables, grilled chicken, and it looked like a feast, even without the high calorie sauces that were excluded from it. Meanwhile, I had ordered some quote unquote macro friendly meal that was tiny in comparison. I made some comment about how he was eating way more than me, and he laughed and said, dude, this entire thing is probably way less calories than your plate. I didn't believe him, so I looked it up, and he was right. That massive salad was only about 400 calories, but my sad little plate was about 600. That's when everything clicked. Volume matters. Your stomach has stretch receptors that signal fullness based on how much physical space food takes up, not just how many calories are in it. That's why you can eat 100 calories of nuts and still feel hungry, but eat 100 calories of vegetables and feel slightly more stuffed. High protein and high fiber foods are your best friends because they give you the most volume for the fewest calories. Let's break this down with real examples. Take 99% lean ground turkey paired with a massive bed of lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, and other vegetables. You could literally eat a plate the size of your head for maybe 400 to 500 calories. Now compare that to a burger and fries from a fast food place. Same calories, if not way more, but you're getting a fraction of the volume and you'll be hungry again in 2 hours. Plus you won't feel that much better. Egg white pancakes are another perfect example. Mix egg whites with some protein powder, a bit of baking powder, cook them up, top them with some sugar-free syrup and maybe some berries. You're getting a massive stack of pancakes, something that feels indulgent and satisfying, but you're only consuming maybe 300 to 400 calories while getting 40 to 50 grams of protein. Your brain registers that as a big breakfast. Your stomach feels full, but your calorie budget barely even took a hit. Chicken breast tenderloins with cauliflower rice is another go-to. You could have a huge bowl, I'm talking overflowing, and you're still keeping calories reasonable because cauliflower rice has maybe 25 calories per cup compared to regular rice at 190. The chicken gives you protein to keep you satisfied, and the sheer volume of food makes your body think that you just ate a feast. There was a study that examined snacking behavior, and researchers found that people snack not because they're actually hungry or need the calories, but they just want the habit and experience of eating. They want the crunch, the flavor, the hand-to-mouth motion. It's kind of why it's hard for some people to quit cigarettes even with nicotine alternatives. They want the hand-to-mouth motion. They want the feeling of smoking. The habit they've built up is what they become addicted to. When you eat high-volume, high-fiber foods, you satisfy that psychological need to eat while keeping calories low. You get to experience eating, chewing, tasting, feeling full without the caloric consequences. So for example, a huge bowl of air-popped popcorn or raw vegetables with a low-calorie dip gives you that same snacking experience for minimal calories. The fiber component is crucial too. Fiber slows digestion, keeps your blood sugar stable, and literally creates bulk in your stomach that keeps you feeling satisfied longer. Foods like vegetables, berries, oats, and legumes are fiber powerhouses. And all of those have become an absolute staple in my diet, whether I'm bulking or cutting. When you combine high protein with high fiber, you're creating meals that keep you full for hours, not minutes. But even with perfect foods, you need to make sure your calorie deficit isn't working against you. So what's the right approach? Let me tell you about the time I thought I could outsmart my body and accelerate my fat loss by just being more aggressive with my deficit. I calculated my maintenance calories, around 2,500. Instead of doing the reasonable thing and just eating 500 under, I decided to eat 1,500 calories a day. In my mind, a bigger deficit meant faster results, and I wanted to be shredded as quickly as possible. The first 3 days were fine. I felt disciplined, motivated, like I was finally taking this seriously. But day 4, I woke up exhausted. And day 5, my workout felt terrible. I couldn't hit my usual weights, and I had no energy. By day 7, I was thinking about food constantly. Not just meal times, I meant every minute of every day. I'd be at work, and instead of my focus being 100% on my job, I'd be mentally calculating how many hours until I could eat again. Day 10, I cracked. I went to a restaurant planning to have a reasonable meal. I ended up ordering like 3 entrees and eating every single bite. I gained back 4 pounds overnight from that one meal. And obviously all of that wasn't fat, but I still felt bloated and disgusting and just overall disappointed with myself, which is just a horrible state to be in, especially after all that hard work I'd put in. That cycle repeated itself 3 more times before I finally admitted what I was doing wasn't working. I'd be perfect for a week or 2, then completely lose control and binge, undoing all of my progress. I was frustrated, angry at myself, wondering why I had no self-control. But here's what I didn't understand at the time. It wasn't a willpower problem, it was a biology problem. When you create too large of a deficit, your body doesn't sit there and let you lose fat peacefully. It fights back, hard. Your hunger hormones, specifically ghrelin and leptin, go absolutely haywire. So ghrelin, which signals hunger, skyrockets. And leptin, which signals fullness and satisfaction, plummets. Suddenly, you're hungry all the time. Nothing satisfies you, and every meal feels like it's not enough. Your energy crashes, your workouts suffer, your mood tanks, and your body starts holding on to every calorie it can because it thinks you're starving. A 500 calorie deficit is the sweet spot. It's aggressive enough to produce consistent fat loss, about 1 pound per week, without triggering your body's starvation response. You maintain your energy levels, your gym performance stays strong, your hormones stay relatively balanced, and most importantly, you don't feel like you're suffering every single day. Sustainability is the name of the game. You can white knuckle a massive deficit for a week, maybe 2, but can you do it for 3 months, 6 months? Probably not. And when you break, you'll likely binge and undo all your progress because your brain will play every single trick on you to get you to eat because it views that deficit as an attack on its survival. That 500 calorie deficit, on the other hand, allows you to have a life. You can go out to eat occasionally. You can have energy to stay constantly active or focus at work. You're not always thinking about food because your body isn't in panic mode. This is about creating a lifestyle you can maintain, not trying to cosplay as Tom Hanks from Castaway. Remember, the best diet is one you could actually stick to. If your deficit is so aggressive that you're miserable, you won't stick to it and you won't get results. Now within that 500 calorie deficit, there's one macronutrient that people often cut too low, and it's actually sabotaging their hunger control. What is it? For the first 2 years of my serious dieting, I was absolutely terrified of dietary fat. I'd look at nutrition labels at the store and see that fats had 9 calories per gram, while on the other hand, protein and carbs only had 4. And I'd think, well, that's an easy decision. Cut the fats, save the calories, lose fat faster. My diet became chicken breast, egg whites, fat-free Greek yogurt, and greens. Everything was lean, everything was low fat. I was hitting my protein target, keeping calories low, thought I was doing everything right. But I felt terrible. I was always hungry. Not just normal diet hunger, but this gnawing, never satisfied feeling that followed me everywhere. My energy was inconsistent. My workouts started suffering, and weirdly, my sex drive completely disappeared, which at 25 years old was definitely not normal. I chalked it up to just part of dieting, and I kept pushing through, thinking I just needed more discipline. Then, I went to get blood work done for an unrelated reason, and my doctor called me concerned. My testosterone levels were in the tank, like lower than they should be for someone my age, even accounting for being in a calorie deficit. He asked about my diet, and then I told him I was eating extremely low fat. He literally shook his head and said, "That's your problem right there." I'll admit, I was skeptical at first. How could eating more fat, the thing with the most calories, help me lose fat and control my hunger? But I was desperate, so I started incorporating healthy fats back into my diet. I started eating avocado on my salads, cooking my chicken in olive oil instead of using cooking spray. I started adding whole eggs to my egg whites. Instead of just eating chicken breast, I would also eat salmon and other fatty fish. And at night, I would have a handful of almonds as a snack. Within 2 weeks, I noticed a massive difference. My hunger became so much more manageable. The meals I was eating actually satisfied me instead of leaving me looking for more food an hour later. Even though I was eating a lower volume of food, my energy stabilized. My workouts improved. And when I got my blood work done again a few months later, my testosterone had bounced back to normal levels. Here's what I learned the hard way. Dietary fats are absolutely crucial for keeping your test regulated, especially in a calorie deficit. When your test drops, which happens naturally when you're dieting, your hunger increases significantly. Your body is trying to get you to eat more to bring your hormones back up, but if you're cutting fats too low, you're accelerating that testosterone drop and making yourself even hungrier. Beyond hormones, fats play a critical role in satiety through a mechanism called gastric emptying. When you eat a meal with adequate fat content, it slows down how quickly food leaves your stomach. This means you stay full longer. A meal with just protein and carbs might digest in 2 hours, which will leave you hungry again. Alright, so you got your foods dialed in, your deficit is reasonable, and you're including healthy fats. But what about the actual exercise you're doing? Could that be making you hungrier than necessary? I used to be one of those people who thought cardio equals more fat loss, and harder cardio equals even better results. So when I started my cut, I'd go out at night and do 45 minutes of alternating between sprinting and running. I'd finish completely destroyed, drenched in sweat, and feeling like I had actually earned my calories for the day. And then I get to work the next day, and by 9 a.m., I was starving. And not like a normal kind of starving. I mean like I could have literally eaten my coworkers starving. I'd have my planned breakfast, but it never felt like enough. And by 10 a.m., I'd be daydreaming about eating an entire box of Timbits and chasing them with a caramel macchiato. I'd make it to lunch, eat my meal, and I'd still feel unsatisfied. I'd constantly be battling hunger, constantly fighting the urge to eat more than my plan allowed. I'd look at my fitness tracker and see 650 calories burned from my last workout and think I was crushing it. But then I'd realize that by the end of the day, I had gone over my calorie goal by 400 to 500 calories because I was so hungry, I couldn't control myself. And if I had just skipped the cardio in the first place, I wouldn't have tried to eat those calories back. But then one week, I got sick and couldn't do my intense cardio. I felt super guilty about it, like I was slacking off, but I still wanted to do something. So I went for easy 30-minute walks instead. Nothing intense, just a comfortable pace where I could breathe normally and listen to a podcast. And something weird happened. I was way less hungry. My appetite felt normal. I could stick to my calorie goal without that desperate clawing hunger I'd been experiencing before. When I recovered and went back to the intense cardio, the hunger came roaring back. That's when I put 2 and 2 together and realized it's the intense cardio making me hungry, not just my deficit. Here's what nobody tells you. Intense cardio makes you fiendish. When you do high-intensity cardiovascular exercise, your body goes into a state of high energy demand. You're burning through glycogen stores, your heart rate is elevated, and your body is working hard. Once you finish, your body's immediate response is we need to recover that energy by eating ASAP. Your hunger hormones spike, and suddenly you're acting like a crackhead with powdered sugar lips. You might be burning 500 calories during that run, but then you come home and eat 700 calories because you're so hungry. Doesn't matter where the calories are coming from. there's still calories. The net result, you actually consumed more than you burned. Not to mention, calorie trackers can have a huge margin of error, so even if you're trying to eat back exactly what you burned, you still end up eating more. But low intensity walking, that burns calories without triggering that same aggressive hunger response. When you go for a 30 to 45 minute walk at a comfortable pace, your body is using dietary fat as its primary fuel source. Don't get that confused with body fat, because exercise alone doesn't burn body fat, it burns calories. Calories from low intensity cardio happen to come more from fat rather than carbs. In short, you're not depleting glycogen, so you're not creating a massive energy debt that needs to be immediately repaid. You finish your walk and you feel good, maybe a little hungry, but nothing uncontrollable. The calorie burn might be slightly less per minute compared to intense cardio, but here's the thing. You can walk every single day, sometimes twice a day, without beating up your body or triggering hunger. It's easy on your joints, it doesn't interfere with your strength training recovery, and it's actually sustainable long term. Plus, walking has additional benefits beyond just calorie burn. It reduces stress, improves insulin sensitivity, aids digestion. It can be done while doing other things, like listening to podcasts, taking phone calls, and spending time with friends or family. It's important to do exercise that adds to your life instead of something you have to suffer through. I'm not saying you can never do intense cardio, but if you're struggling with hunger and trying to stick to a deficit, swapping out all those brutal cardio sessions for consistent daily walks might be the game changer you need. The goal is to create a calorie deficit you can maintain, not to destroy yourself with exercise and then eat everything in sight because you're starving. Alright, so now you're eating all the right foods, your deficit is reasonable, and your exercise isn't making you binge eat by default. But what about meal frequency? Does it matter how often you eat? About 3 years ago, I got really into intermittent fasting. I watched all the YouTube videos, read all the articles, and became convinced that fasting for 16 hours and eating in an 8-hour window was the secret to fat loss. All these lean fitness influencers were saying that eating more frequently spikes insulin and prevents fat loss, and that cramming your food into fewer meals was superior for results. So I committed fully. I'd skip breakfast, push through the morning hunger, and wait until noon to have my first meal. The problem was, by the time noon rolled around, I was absolutely starving. I'd eat my first meal, let's say 800 calories, and it never felt like enough because I was so hungry. An hour later, I'd have another meal, then another. By the time my 8-hour eating window closed at 8 p.m., I'd consumed way more than my calorie goal because I was trying to cram all my food into this compressed time frame while dealing with extreme hunger. I'd wake up the next morning proud of myself for fasting, but then I'd step on the scale and see that I wasn't losing weight. I was confused and frustrated. What was I doing wrong? Then one day, I was talking to a friend who was successfully losing fat, and I asked him about his meal timing. He laughed and said, "Man, I eat like 6 times a day. Small meals every few hours. It's the only way I could stick to my calories without feeling like I'm starving." I immediately thought he was doing it wrong because that's not what the gurus said was optimal. But then I looked at his results. He was down 25 pounds and looked great. Meanwhile, I was at the same weight that I was at a month ago, struggling constantly with my hunger and not making measurable progress. So I tried his approach. Instead of fasting and then eating 2 or 3 massive meals, I spread my calories across 5 or 6 smaller meals throughout the day. So I'd have breakfast at 7 a.m., a snack at 10 a.m., lunch at 1 p.m., a snack at 4 p.m., dinner at 7 p.m., and maybe something small before bed if I had calories left. And it was a complete game changer. Suddenly, I was never too hungry. I'd finish a meal, and I knew another one was coming in just a few hours, so I can make it through without panicking. Psychologically, it was so much easier. At the end of the day, I was hitting my calorie goal consistently instead of overshooting it because I was trying to eat while my body was screaming at me. Let me be blunt. Forget what the intermittent fasting gurus told you. I know you heard that you should fast for 16 hours and eat in an 8-hour window, or that eating more frequently spikes insulin and ruins fat loss, or that eating 1 or 2 big meals is superior. And for some people, that works great. But for many people trying to stick to a calorie deficit while managing hunger, it's terrible advice, especially when you're cutting for months and months. Here's the only rule that actually matters. Don't go over your daily calorie goal. That's it. Whether you eat 1 meal, 3 meals, or 6 meals throughout the entire day is completely irrelevant for fat loss. What matters is the total amount of calories you consume in a 24-hour period. The meal frequency is just a tool to help you stick to that calorie goal. If eating once or twice a day leaves you absolutely starving, unable to control yourself, and eventually binging because you're so hungry, then that eating pattern just isn't working for you, regardless of what some fitness influencer says. There's nothing magical about fasting for 16 hours if it means you destroy your calorie goal in your eating window because you were too hungry to control your portions. That's not sustainable. For a lot of people, especially in a calorie deficit, and even more so longer term ones, eating more frequently actually makes adherence easier. If you know you have a meal coming in 2 or 3 hours, you can make it through the current hunger without panicking. You're never too far from your next meal, and psychologically, this can be an incredibly powerful tool. It prevents that I'm starving and I need to eat everything right now mentality that leads to overeating. Now, I'm not saying it's required to eat 6 times a day. Maybe 3 meals and 2 snacks works better for you. Maybe even 4 equal-sized meals. The point is to experiment and find what keeps you satisfied and able to stick to your calorie target. Some people thrive on fewer, larger meals because they really like feeling full. Others do better with smaller, more frequent meals because they never feel too hungry. Neither is wrong. The wrong approach is forcing yourself into an eating pattern that makes you miserable just because someone on the internet said it's optimal. Your adherence to your calorie goal is what's optimal. Whatever meal frequency allows you to hit your target consistently without feeling deprived is the right answer for you. And after all that, you're finally eating at the right frequency. But are there some simple habits around your meals that could help you feel even more satisfied? I used to think I was hungry all the time during my cuts. I'd eat a meal, feel satisfied for maybe 30 minutes, and then this uncomfortable feeling would creep back in. My stomach would feel empty. I'd start thinking about food again, and I'd be watching the clock waiting for my next meal. I tried everything. Eating more protein, adding more vegetables, spacing my meals differently, nothing seemed to help. Then one day, I found myself with nothing to eat in the house, and it was too late to go to the store to get a meal. So my only option to consume anything was straight from my kitchen sink, courtesy of my water filter, of course. So I had 1 glass, and then another, and then another. By the time I was ready for bed, I downed a half gallon of water. Food was the last thing on my mind. I realized something I'd never really thought about before. Your body sends similar signals for both hunger and thirst, and most people are walking around chronically dehydrated, interpreting thirst signals as hunger. I decided to try an experiment. Before eating anything or assuming I was hungry, drink 16 ounces of water and wait 10 to 15 minutes. If I was still hungry after that, then I would eat. I tried it. I was absolutely right. Probably 30 to 40% of the times I thought I was hungry, I was actually just thirsty. The hunger would completely go away after drinking water and waiting a few more minutes. The times I was actually hungry, the water didn't make it disappear, but it did make the hunger more manageable and help me eat less to feel satisfied. This one is so simple it almost sounds stupid, but water is genuinely one of the most underrated tools for managing hunger, and yet most people are walking around chronically dehydrated, wondering why they're always hungry. Here's the strategy. Drink a full glass of water before every meal. Then drink water throughout your meal. This serves multiple purposes. First, it helps you fill your stomach before you even start eating, which means you'll reach fullness faster with less food. Second, often when you think you're hungry, you're actually just thirsty. Your body sends similar signals for both, and we tend to interpret them as hunger. Drinking water before eating helps you distinguish between true hunger and thirst. So aim for about a gallon of water per day minimum. I know that sounds like a lot, but let's break it down. That's just 4 32-ounce bottles spread throughout the day. Start your morning with 16 to 20 ounces right when you wake up. Have another bottle mid-morning, and then one with lunch, one in the afternoon, and one with dinner. Suddenly, a gallon doesn't seem that crazy. Staying properly hydrated does more than just manage hunger. It keeps your metabolism running efficiently, helps with digestion so you're not bloated or constipated, which can make you feel terrible and affect your appetite signals. It also helps maintain your energy levels and even helps with mental clarity. When you're dehydrated, everything suffers, including your ability to stick to your diet. Here's a practical tip. Keep a water bottle with you at all times, whether it's in your car, at your desk, or even next to your bed. Make it effortless to drink water throughout the day. If you have to go get water every time you want to drink, you'll drink less. But if it's right there in front of you, you'll sip consistently without thinking about it. You can always add 0 sugar flavoring to it as well if you get bored of just drinking regular water all the time. I always found that helps me stay away from liquid calories without having to drink excessive amounts of diet soda and juices. So water helps with feeling full, but there's another eating behavior that can make a huge difference in how satisfied you feel. What is it? I'll never forget the first time someone pointed out how fast I ate. I was at lunch with a friend. We had both ordered the same meal, and we started eating at the same time. I finished in what felt like normal time, probably about 7 or 8 minutes. I looked over, and he was maybe halfway through his plate. I made some joke about him being a slow eater, and he looked at me like I was crazy and said, "You just inhaled your food. I don't even think you waited for it to cool down." And he was right. I brushed it off at the time, but later that day, I realized I'd built up a lifetime habit of eating too fast for my own good. I couldn't really remember what my lunch tasted like. I just shoveled it in my mouth as fast as possible, barely chewing, always going on to the next bite. And weirdly, even though I felt like I had just eaten a full meal, I didn't feel satisfied. I felt like I could eat way more. My stomach felt physically full, but my brain hadn't registered that I had eaten yet. So the next day, I tried to make a change. I set a timer when I started eating and forced myself to take at least 20 minutes to finish my meal. I put my fork down between bites. I chewed thoroughly. I took sips of water, and then something remarkable happened. I felt way more satisfied when I finished, even though it was the same exact meal with the exact same calories as the day before. That's when I learned about the science behind it. It takes approximately 20 minutes for your brain to receive the signal from your stomach that you're full. If you're inhaling your food in 5 minutes, you're going to overeat before your body even knows what happened. You'll finish your plate, still feel hungry, go back for seconds, and then 20 minutes later, you're uncomfortably stuffed, wondering what went wrong. The solution is simple. You have to slow down. It seems really simple, but looking back on it, it's something I overlooked for most of my life. And here's a trick that feels silly, but genuinely works. Try using smaller utensils. Instead of a big spoon, use a small spoon. Instead of a large fork, use a salad fork. This forces you to take smaller bites, which naturally slows down your eating. You'll take more bites to finish your meal, which extends the time it takes to eat. That gives your body time to register fullness. Another helpful strategy is to portion out your meal and then put away any leftovers before you start eating. So don't eat family style with serving dishes on the table where you can easily reach for more. Plate your food, put the rest away, and then sit down to eat. This creates a pause between finishing your first serving and getting seconds. During that pause, your fullness signals have time to kick in, and you can make a conscious decision about whether you're actually still hungry or you just want more out of habit. Think about how you eat now. Are you scrolling on your phone while shoveling food in your mouth? Are you eating in front of the TV, barely paying attention to what you're consuming? Are you standing at the counter eating straight from the container? All of these behaviors lead to overeating because you're not engaged with the eating process. You're not giving your body time to communicate with your brain. Make eating a mindful activity. Sit down at a table. Pay attention to your food, the flavors, textures, how it makes you feel. This isn't just woo-woo nonsense, it's sustainable hunger management. When you eat slowly and mindfully, you'll enjoy your food more, you'll eat less, and you'll feel more satisfied. It's a win across the board. Eating habits during the day matter, but what about what happens when you're not awake? Could your sleep be affecting your hunger more than you realize? There was a month during my cut where I was doing everything right. I had implemented everything from this video correctly. My calories were dialed in, my training was on point, I was eating high protein foods, drinking my water, everything I've covered so far. But I was working a new job with a brutal schedule that had me going to bed at midnight and waking up at 5:30 a.m. I was getting maybe 5 hours of sleep a night, sometimes less. And I was absolutely struggling with hunger like never before. I'd eat my breakfast, a meal that normally kept me satisfied for hours, and an hour later I'd be looking for my next meal. By mid-morning, I'd be obsessing over food. I'd eat lunch and feel like I'd barely eaten anything. I was constantly fighting the urge to eat more, and my willpower was hanging by a thread. So like usual, I started blaming my diet. Maybe I needed more protein, more carbs, more fats. Maybe my deficit was too aggressive. I tweaked everything, but nothing helped. The hunger was relentless. Some days I'd give in and eat way over my calorie goal, then feel guilty and frustrated with myself for lacking discipline. Then, the brutal work schedule ended, and I went back to my normal sleep pattern, getting to bed by 10 p.m. and sleeping until 6:30 or 7 a.m., getting a solid 8 to 9 hours. And within 3 days, my hunger normalized. Same diet, same training, same everything. My meals felt satisfying again. I could stick to my calorie goal without it feeling like torture. It was like a switch had flipped. If you're not getting enough sleep, it doesn't matter how perfect your diet and training are, you're going to struggle with hunger. Sleep deprivation absolutely wrecks your hunger hormones, and there's no amount of willpower that can overcome bad biology. Beyond hormones, sleep deprivation tanks your decision-making abilities and impulse control. That's the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and resisting temptation. That gets impaired even more when you're tired. So not only are you hungrier, but you also have less ability to resist those cravings. You're walking around with maxed out hunger and no willpower. Good luck sticking to your diet in that state. The solution is to just aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep every night. Not 5, not 6 because you're busy, but 7 to 9 actual hours of sleep. That means you might need to go to bed earlier. It might mean you need to cut out late night screen time. It might mean you need to address sleep apnea or other sleep disorders. Whatever it takes, prioritize it. Think about sleep as part of your diet strategy, not separate from it. Going to bed on time is just as important as meal prepping or tracking your calories. When you're well rested, you have more energy for your workouts, better recovery, more stable moods, and crucially, normal hunger signals. Those food decisions that felt impossible when you're exhausted become easy when you're well rested. If you're constantly tired, dragging through your days, hitting the snooze button repeatedly and relying on caffeine to function, you need to fix your sleep before anything else. Because you can have the perfect meal plan, but if you're exhausted, you're going to eat everything in sight and wonder why you have no self-control. It's not a willpower problem. It's common sense. Alright, so now you're sleeping well, which means your hunger hormones are regulated. But how about those times when you want to do something indulgent? Should you never have treats? Well, I learned this lesson the hard way, and all it took was a container of Oreos. I was about 6 weeks into a cut, making great progress, feeling disciplined and in control. I had some Oreos left over from my bulk when I was using them to make protein dessert recipes, so I kept a family-sized package in my pantry. For weeks, I'd walk past them every day and feel proud of myself for not touching them. I didn't need them. I was committed. Then I had one of those days. You know the kind. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. I got stuck in traffic, had a frustrating day at work, came home stressed and exhausted. I ate my planned dinner, which should have been enough, but I was still feeling unsatisfied. Not physically hungry, just mentally craving something, anything to make the day feel better. I told myself I'd have 2 Oreos, just 2. I opened the package, had 2, and they tasted amazing. I closed the package and walked away, feeling good about my discipline. But then 20 minutes later, I was back. And just like the marshmallow incident, I stopped counting. And before I knew it, I was sitting on the couch with the empty package, having eaten probably 30 Oreos, and I felt absolutely terrible. Not just physically sick, but mentally defeated. I had consumed over 1,500 calories in one sitting and completely destroyed my progress for the week. The next morning, I felt guilty and frustrated. I blamed myself for lacking discipline, which was the right answer. But then I asked myself an honest question. If those Oreos weren't in the house, would this have happened? No, absolutely not. Because even on my worst, most stressful day, I'm not getting in my car, driving to the store, and buying Oreos just to binge on them. The convenience of them being right there in my pantry was what got me. The barrier to eating them was so low that when my willpower was depleted from a hard day, there was nothing stopping me. That's when I made a new rule. If I wanted Oreos, I could have them, but I wasn't keeping them in the house anymore. If I really wanted some, I could go to the store and buy a single serving package, like the little 4-pack. I could eat them right away, and then they'd be gone. No temptation sitting in the pantry waiting for my next weak moment. Let me be clear, you should absolutely enjoy treats occasionally. This isn't about suffering or depriving yourself forever. A diet that doesn't include foods you enjoy is a diet you won't stick to. The key is to be strategic about how you incorporate treats so they enhance your diet instead of derailing it. The mistake most people make is keeping large quantities of treat foods in their house for special occasions or for when you really need it. Then what happens? You have a stressful day or you're bored. Maybe you're tired and your willpower is low. And suddenly you're elbow deep in a box of cookies or a pint of ice cream and your entire week's progress is gone. Here's the better approach. When you want a treat, go get a single serving. Don't buy it in bulk. If you love donuts, don't buy a dozen to keep in the house. Drive to the bakery and buy 1 donut. Eat it, enjoy it thoroughly, then it's gone. There's nothing in your house tempting you later. Same goes with bagels, cookies, ice cream, whatever your vice is. Buy it in a single serving portion whenever you want it. This strategy works because it removes the temptation from your environment while still allowing you to enjoy the foods that you love. You get the satisfaction of the treat without the risk of it being available when your guard is down. You're not constantly negotiating with yourself about whether you should have another serving because there is no other serving available. The decision is already made. And some people will say that's inconvenient. I have to go to the store every time I want something, but that's the point. That inconvenience is a feature. It creates friction between you and the treat, which gives you time to ask yourself if you really want it or if you're just eating out of habit or emotion. If you want it badly enough to get in your car and go buy it, then great. Go enjoy it guilt-free. But if you're just eating it because it's there, that friction prevents mindless consumption. The frequency of treats depends on your goals and how aggressive your deficit is. Maybe it's once a week. Maybe it's a small snack every few days. Maybe it's in the 20% of your calories that you allotted to treat foods in your diet on a daily basis. The important part is that it's planned and controlled, not impulsive and unlimited. When you know you have a treat coming, it's easier to stay disciplined the rest of the time. You're not feeling deprived because you know you're not banned from enjoying food, you're just being smart about it. And here's the thing, when you only have treats occasionally and in single servings, you actually enjoy them more. When you have ice cream every night, it stops being special. But when you have it once a week, you savor every bite. You're present with it. It becomes something you look forward to instead of something you mindlessly shovel in your mouth while you're watching TV. And after my Oreo incident, I started following this rule religiously. If I wanted something indulgent, I'd go get it, have it, enjoy it, and move on. No keeping temptations in the house. And you know what? My diet adherence skyrocketed. I went from struggling and binging when things got hard to consistently hitting my calorie goals week after week. The treats I did have felt way more satisfying because they were intentional. They weren't desperate responses to having trigger foods readily available. So yes, have your treats, enjoy them. If you take all that into account, your future self will thank you when you wake up the next morning without regret and with your diet still intact. That's how you build a realistic approach to fat loss, one that includes the foods you love without letting them control you. It's a lot to unpack, but the core values of all these ideals relate back to the same kind of solution. Your environment beats willpower 10 out of 10 times. So forget just trying to eat less, run longer, train harder. None of these matter if you don't have the right systems in place. And now that you have that knowledge to put these systems into place, hunger is no longer something that controls your life, but rather something that you can control without having to make painful sacrifices. Even though I can say with confidence that all of this works, because this is the exact framework I've used for myself and with my clients to consistently attain measurable results, its implementation looks different in everyone's life. No two plans are ever the same. So if you're serious about losing 20 pounds by the end of the year and don't want to do it alone, you can book a free private one-on-one call with me. It's just for me to see if I can help you, and if I can, we'll come up with a game plan that can either be implemented yourself or working one-on-one with me. I look forward to helping you achieve the transformation of your dreams.